Okay, so you know how sometimes you're planning a trip and like
Oh, yeah.
you get that
For sure.
like twinge of guilt?
Totally.
Like, oh, am I
Mm-hmm.
contributing to the problem
Yeah.
by hopping on a plane?
The carbon footprint thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, today we are diving into some news that might make
Yeah.
that little voice in the back of your head
Or
a little quieter.
interesting.
So we're talking about Verra.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, they're like a major player
Okay.
in this whole world of carbon markets.
Mm-hmm.
And their Verified Carbon Standard program.
VCS?
Yep, the VCS program just got a big thumbs up
Wow.
from the UN's aviation body
No
to
kidding.
be used in CORSIA.
Now, CORSIA, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's all about making sure
Yeah.
international flights are doing their part
Right.
to reduce their impact
Yep.
on the climate.
Climate change, the whole thing.
Exactly.
So big picture,
Yeah.
CORSIA is like the rule book.
Okay.
And VCS is,
Kind of like the marketplace.
I like that,
Yeah.
a marketplace for airlines.
Specifically, yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
break this down for me.
Sure.
What is the VCS program in a nutshell?
Okay, so basically it lets companies, in this case we're talking about airlines,
Right.
offset their carbon emissions.
Okay.
So let's say you're flying from...
New York to London or something.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
got it.
Okay.
You burn all that jet fuel. You're putting emissions into the atmosphere.
Right.
Now the airline can invest in a project
Okay.
somewhere else in the world
Got it.
that's actively reducing emissions. It
Good.
could be planting trees. It could be funding a solar farm,
Okay.
things like that.
It's kind of like balancing the scales.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. You're putting emissions up over here,
Mm-hmm.
but then you're
Taking them out over there.
taking them out over there.
Exactly.
But this approval,
Mm-hmm.
like, what does it actually mean?
Okay.
Like on the ground,
Okay, good question. So
how does it actually change things?
it means that airlines can now buy these things called verified carbon units.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
Yeah. So VCUs.
AZUs.
VCUs. Yeah, that's right. And these VCUs represent emissions reductions
Okay.
from these Verra-approved projects.
Got it.
So think like a wind farm in Argentina or a project preventing deforestation
Mm-hmm.
in the Amazon rainforest.
So it's real stuff.
Okay, these are
Tangible projects on the ground.
okay. So it's not just a feel good.
Just like a PR stunt.
Exactly, it's
Yeah.
a system
Like-
with real rules.
It's like a real
Yeah.
thing.
And with oversight,
Yeah.
it's got to be legit.
Okay.
Yeah,
So this approval, basically.
it opens up a huge market
Okay.
for these VCS projects. So we
Yeah.
could be talking about millions,
Wow.
even billions of dollars
Right.
flowing towards projects
That are actually
that are actually making a difference.
making a difference.
Yeah,
Okay, this is
where it gets interesting.
where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Because, like, on the surface,
Yeah,
it seems like a win-win.
it does, right?
The airlines,
Mm-hmm.
they get to show that they're, like,
They're committed
to
to
sustainability.
the sustainability, yeah.
Right.
And then you've got
And then these projects,
these projects that need the funding.
they get the money.
They get the money to expand.
It seems.
Yeah, it does.
Better.
It creates a very interesting dynamic.
It does.
Like,
But, like,
so what would the
what are the...
potential downsides?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that CORSIA,
Mm-hmm.
the program that's driving this whole system,
Right.
requires something called host country authorization.
Host country authorization.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It sounds very official.
it does.
And it is.
Okay.
And this is where Article 6 of the Paris Agreement comes in.
Okay. The Paris Agreement.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Huge deal.
Okay. It's all about making sure
Hmm?
these carbon reducing efforts
Yeah.
are recognized internationally.
Okay.
So those projects that we're talking about,
Like a wind farm.
like the wind farm or the
forest.
Forest Conservation Initiative, they need to work with
Okay.
the governments
The governments of wherever.
of the countries where they're operating.
Got it.
It's a way to make sure everything is transparent
Mhm.
and that everyone's playing by the same rules on a global scale.
So it's where Verra comes in.
Yeah.
Right? They're like the referees.
Yeah, they're like the referees,
Very good.
making sure everything's on the up and up.
They're making sure it's
Yeah.
all above board.
Exactly.
And I read that they're even releasing.
They are. They're releasing
guidelines.
new guidelines to help
Right.
airlines and the
Helps
project developers.
The developers figure it all out.
Yeah, figure out how to navigate all this stuff.
Okay, so big picture for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just an average person.
Okay.
I like to travel.
All right.
What does this mean for me?
So next time you're booking a flight,
Mhm.
you might start seeing airlines offering these like carbon neutral flight options.
Oh, yeah. Like I've seen
Yeah.
that popping up.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
this approval could be a big driver of that trend.
So I could
You could directly
buy my ticket.
Yeah. And
Gosh.
support these projects with your purchase.
Okay, but here we got to talk about
We got to talk about
the criticism.
the criticisms of carbon offsetting.
Yeah, like some people say
Just some biggies say.
that it lets companies
Hook.
just kind of
just buy their way
out
of actually making changes.
Yeah, and not actually
not really.
reducing their emissions.
Not really addressing the root of the problem.
Yeah, so is it just a way
Is it just a way
to buy a clean conscience?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is a million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And I think
a lot of it hinges on the quality and integrity
of these projects.
Of these VCS projects.
Yeah. Are they actually doing what they say they're doing?
Yeah.
Are they actually making a real difference?
It's a complex issue.
It is.
Right.
It's not a simple answer.
There's no easy answers.
Yeah.
But it is something that
it's worth exploring further.
It's worth exploring further.
Okay.
So, as we wrap up here,
I
want to leave everyone with some questions to think about.
All right,
So, will this move
Okay.
by the aviation industry actually lead to real emissions reductions?
Good question.
That's number one.
Okay.
What about other industries?
Yeah.
Could we see this happening
Could they benefit
in other sectors?
from similar schemes?
Yeah. And what about
ethically?
Yeah. Ethically, is it
Okay.
to just rely on offsets?
To rely so heavily
Yeah.
on offsets instead of
Instead of just reducing our own emissions.
reducing our own
The
consumption.
opinion
Is that really solving the problem?
Yeah, are we just
Or are we just kind of kicking the can down the road?
kicking the can down the road?
Yeah.
So much to think about.
So much to unpack.
So much to unpack.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
keep digging.
Keep questions.
Keep questioning.
The key.
That's the key.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
Absolutely. This was fascinating.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Great.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.